And another day in the world gone mad. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. I'm back again to give my commentary on the news. Thank you for joining me. Okay, let's talk about the madness. Supreme Court narrows California's emission power. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that fuel producers like Valero can challenge California's stricter vehicle emission standards under the Clean Air Act. Now, Justice Kavanaugh emphasized that regulated industries have standing to sue when regulations harm them financially, reversing an earlier lower court decision. Justices Jackson and Sotomayor dissented, warning this weakens environmental oversight and gives undue corporate influence. In practical terms, this means fossil fuel interests now have a legal pathway to contest California's zero-emission vehicle mandate for 2035. The ruling doesn't overturn California's rules yet, but creates the potential for protracted legal battles. Observers warn this could slow forward momentum on climate regulations nationwide and embolden challenges to other federal or state-level green standards. Now, two of the Democratic justices dissented, so Elena Kagan either voted with the conservative side or did she abstain? Anyway, more dismantling of environmental protections. I don't understand it. This is not a Jeff Democratic liberal viewpoint. This is not a Republican viewpoint. This issue is a common sense viewpoint. And we're doing everything we can to destroy our environment as fast as we can. DHS mandates advance notice for congressional visits to ICE. The Department of Homeland Security quietly introduced a new rule requiring lawmakers to provide 72-hour notice for visits to ICE field offices and 24 hours for staff entry. The policy shift follows tense encounters like the June 9th confrontation in Newark, where Representative McIver and others were blocked by ICE officials. Critics argued this limits executive oversight, breaches statutory rights of Congress. Representative Benny Thompson called it unlawful, while others say it signals growing authoritarian tendencies within DHS. Proponents defend it as a necessary safety measure for secure facilities. The debate now centers on whether this policy undermines transparency or enhances deterrence against unsanctioned visits. You know what I think? How about having a 72-hour waiting period before the police can bust a drug ring? Or to stop a shooting at a school, we have to give 72 hours notice to the shooter before we can intervene. This ruling is ludicrous. You're telling members of Congress and the Senate that they can't go investigate something without notice because we need to give those people time to prepare to clean up any problems before anyone catches them. Absurd. Student visa entrants must disclose social media. Now, the U.S. State Department has resumed processing foreign student visas, F, M, and J categories, but with a new requirement. Applicants must unlock and make their social media profiles public. Posts, likes, follows may now be scrutinized for signs of hostility toward the U.S. and a refusal to comply risks visa denial. Now, critics, including universities and civil liberties advocates, say the rule could chill free expression, impact academic freedom, and discourage thousands of international students who contribute significantly to U.S. education and research from coming. Now, embassies are citing new workloads, and applicants from schools with less than 50% international enrollment may face greater scrutiny. Look, I understand what they're trying to do. And they put it in a veil of, just being sure and protecting the university or protecting the workplace or whatever you want to call it. But the truth of the matter is, this is an invasion of privacy and another dagger to free speech and expression. I just don't agree with this level of oversight. Surge in threats to elected officials. Following the politically motivated shooting of two Minnesota state legislators, Capitol Police report a record 9,474 threats logged in 2024, highest since the January 6th Capitol attack. Senators and representatives are now urging increased security funding with bipartisan calls for tougher enforcement and better protection measures. Authorities are also debating preventative steps like enhanced screening, increased agency coordination, and speedier prosecutions. The Minnesota assassination is part of a worrying national trend. Not only are threats increasing, but violence is creeping closer to home in state capitals, prompting deeper reflection on political rhetoric and safety for public servants. Look, what we've come to is massive threats, dangerous life and death, and in some cases, fatal threats carried out against public servants. And the appalling part of all this is how the Republicans don't see this as a problem, don't see this expanding violence against people who represent other factions. What's next? Attacking podcasters or people on YouTube or newspaper journalists? Yeah, I know. That's not far-fetched, is it? So Trump mulled bunker buster strike on Iran and its Fordo installation. So sources reported that former President Trump was weighing a decision on deploying GBU-57 bunker buster against Iran's deeply buried nuclear sites. Despite concerns that such strikes could destabilize the region, evoking a Libya-style aftermath, Trump was leaning towards action if negotiations failed, although he paused it for 2 weeks to weigh the risk. The taco syndrome. Now, these bunker busters are among the few weapons capable of penetrating the fortified underground structure, but military advisors are divided over their effectiveness. The final decision was expected to happen within the next fortnight, with Israeli officials urging decisive strikes, while European actors simultaneously push for diplomacy. The bravado, the false bravado from Donald, I'm going to do this, and if you don't do that, and I don't follow through with it. The taco syndrome, like I said, he was going to delay it for 2 weeks. Trump follows up. This is the style of Donald Trump again, not a true leader. And I've said it over and over again, not decisive, pretends, to look big, all bluster, all bark, no bite, no substance. And then Iran was hit from Donald Trump. That's right, Donald Trump. The administration, the military, did strike the nuclear facilities in Iran in the last 12 hours. On again, off again, Donald. No consistency, no diplomacy, no understanding how the world works, and he's putting the Middle East in a very frigging dangerous situation. And we're all holding our breath to see what Iran's going to do, and then Israel, and then USA again, and then the other people, China and Russia, etc. It's just a shit show. All because of Trump, his inaction, then his action, then his inaction, and then finally he does this. Iran launches missiles at Soroka Hospital in Israel. Over 30 Iranian missiles struck southern Israel, including the Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba, wounding at least 50 individuals, 6 critically. Israel responded by bombing Iran's Arak heavy water reactor, and threats emerged against Iran's supreme leader and Tehran. They have called a war crime. All of this. In response to escalating regional risk, European ministers convened in Geneva to explore diplomatic options, while nations like the UK began evacuating embassy staff from Iran. Israel, however, remained skeptical of diplomatic overtures, continued to push U.S. to, make a strike, push Donald Trump to action, and kept the tensions dangerously elevated. And Trump acted and struck Iran. Just unbelievable. Global push to de-escalate the Middle East tensions now. International leaders, spearheaded by EU ministers, are urgently pushing for de-escalation amid growing Iran-Israel hostilities, and now that U.S. is involved. Meetings in Geneva involving Germany, France, the UK, EU diplomats aim to prevent further civilian casualties and avert a broader regional war. Meanwhile, embassies, including Britain's, are withdrawing staff from Tehran and advising nationals to avoid travel, clear indication of escalating international concern. The U.S. was urging American citizens in Israel and Iran to leave, with both sides deeply entrenched. The risk of a wider Middle Eastern conflict after Donald struck Iran has never been higher. We know how dangerous this is because embassies are being told to close. World leaders are scrambling, obviously, all because Israel and now Trump with his strike on Iran are making this firestorm ratchet up 1,000-fold. This, Wolfpack listeners, is like carrying nitroglycerin on your fingertip. The U.S. CEOs hit 5-year low in economic outlook. According to the latest Business Roundtable data, sentiment among U.S. CEOs have plummeted to a 5-year low, with the CEO Economic Outlook Index dropping to 69 in Q2, well below the long-run average of 83. Roughly 40% of CEOs plan to reduce their workforce in the next 6 months, a sharp increase from 30% in the first quarter. This downturn is driven by heightened uncertainty around trade policies, escalating tariffs, labor shortages, and rising costs of materials. The housing sector is also showing weakness, with new starts and building permits down sharply in May, worrying sign that the high mortgage rates are indeed suppressing construction. Together, these trends suggest that while the labor market remains resilient, cracks are forming under mounting macroeconomic pressures, hinting at a potential slowdown ahead. In other words, the CEOs are concerned about the madness, creative with the reflection of Donald Trump, and the lack of spine that the Republicans have not shown, not stood up by not going against Donald. And when CEOs are talking about this, then you know we're in a serious situation. Brazil pushes for expanded climate commitments at COP30. As president of COP30, Brazil proposed a bold new framework urging states, cities, and corporations to commit to emissions targets alongside national pledges, creating what he calls a global determined contribution, CDC. This effort aims to fill gaps left by government inaction, enabling U.S. cities and companies to participate despite broader federal withdrawal from the Paris Agreement by Donald. Brazil's ambassador emphasized the GDC as a new dynamic to integrate non-state actors into global climate goals. The proposal seeks to boost ambition ahead of COP30 in Belém this November. Diplomatic outreach encourages nations to update pledges by September, aiming for a cohesive blend of public and private commitments. Brazil's climate champion noted that cities and businesses often outpace national efforts, highlighting the move as a pragmatic shift towards real-world emissions reductions. Great initiative. But the problem is, we're 20 to 30 years too late. It's so nice to hear something about like COP30. But seriously, it's just a snail pace for us, the citizens of this country, and the reality of not dealing with global warming. In another related story, UN Ocean Summit marks the turning point in marine protection. Now, at the UN Ocean Summit in Nice, over 60 heads of state, 190 ministers gathered to elevate ocean conservation onto the international agenda. Member states endorsed a landmark high seas treaty designed to protect 30% of global oceans by 2030, emphasizing curbs on destructive practices like deep sea mining and bottom trawling. France announced the creation of a 5 million square kilometer marine protected area, but drew criticism for only restricting, not banning the bottom trawling. They're restricting it, they're just not banning it. Though challenges remains as funding and implementation, the summit sparked renewed political will. Notably, 37 countries supported a mining moratorium, marking a significant victory for conservationists. Experts described the summit as a wake-up moment, comparing it to the Paris Agreement in raising awareness and driving commitments towards marine sustainability. And I'm going to become redundant, Wolfpack listeners. Exactly my comment I made before in the previous news article about COP30. The action on the environment, whether it be the COP30 or this oceans agreement, it's nice to see this happening. But again, Sorry, where was this many years ago? Why is this taking so long? And every time we come up with a new agreement, a new plan to help the environment, and it's going to happen 5 years from now, and it's ridiculous. We are wasting time. We are behind the 8 ball. We are running uphill blindfolded. I'm pissed, as I'm sure a lot of you are, with everything that's happening day by day, hour by hour since Donald's reelection. The stupidity, the absurdity, the insanity of striking Iran nuclear facilities and getting involved and creating a bigger war, the delay on these environmental procedures, the delay of people showing up at ICE facilities because they have to get notification. All this is stupid. We have lost our sense of direction. We have lost any semblance of intelligence and sanity and moving forward in this country to really make America great again, not the bullshit make America great again that Donald and MAGA want. We take a breath, and I'm sorry, I'm angry. Every day I have to be involved in this. You guys can either go, I don't want to listen to news, I don't listen to your podcast because it's too overwhelming. You stick your head in the sand, or you just post memes and stories on different websites. And I have to deal with this every day. And I'm not saying woe is me, but enough. Leadership, Democrats, somebody stand up. Let's get action together to stop this disrobing, this dismantling. The emperor has no clothes. I'm going to lighten the mood a little bit, okay? With not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. How do you like that, people? 4 uplifting, inspiring stories for you, the Wolfpack listeners. A woman writes 10,000 thank you notes over 11 years. Ellen Webster, a resident of Hoboken, New Jersey, has spent the past 11 years writing and sending 10,000 handwritten thank you notes. Her recipients vary widely from physicians to baristas and authors, each note expressing gratitude for a moment of kindness, encouragement, or comfort she experienced. Ellen told ABC News, I write because I believe it matters to acknowledge the good people and what they bring into our lives. In a digital age saturated by text and emails, Ellen's commitment to handwritten gratitude is extraordinary. She spends 2 hours daily on this labor of love, carefully selecting stationery, penning personalized messages, and mailing them herself. Her mission extends beyond mere politeness. She's rebuilding a culture of sincerity and human connection. Recipients often respond with surprise and appreciation, sharing how the unexpected postcards brighten tough days or rekindle hope. Ellen's story reminds us that small, consistent acts of kindness can ripple outward, reinforcing the power of individual agency in fostering community and compassion. And in another story, a high school senior sketches 110 classmates. At Notre Dame Academy in Staten Island, New York, graduating senior Sophia Nielsen spent 2 months sketching portraits of all 110 of her classmates as a project she completed just before graduation. Drawing during lunch breaks and free periods, Sophia aimed to capture each student's unique expression and personality. Her final montage was unveiled at graduation, bringing many people to tears. Sophia's project highlights the power of recognition and connection, especially during a milestone filled with change and uncertainty. She said in an interview, I wanted everyone to feel seen before we go our separate ways. The impact was immediate. Students shared that seeing themselves immortalized in art helped forge deeper bonds. The school plans to display the portraits in a permanent gallery. How cool. Ensuring lasting memories. Sophia's work exemplifies how one person's creativity makes a difference. And here we go. Another uplifting, inspiring story. 82-year-old grandmother is going to compete in power lifting at the U.S. Senior Games. That's right. At 82 years old, Faith O'Reilly is breaking stereotypes and records. After starting weightlifting at the age of 76 to combat osteoporosis, she has grown from resistance bands to lifting 80-plus pounds on the bench press and squatting nearly 120 pounds. Recently, she qualified for the U.S. Senior Games, becoming one of the oldest powerlifting competitors in history. What's most inspiring isn't just her age-defying strength, It's her message. It's never too late to become your strongest self. Local gyms now report an uptick in older adults seeking training, and Faith is using her platform to advocate for senior fitness. Her story combines grit and heart, showing that empowerment comes at any stage of life. And finally, zoo elephant rescues a drowning gazelle. Picture this. At Guatemala City's Aurora Zoo, a heartwarming sight unfolded when an elephant intervened to save a young gazelle trapped in a pond. Using its trunk, the elephant first pulled the startled gazelle halfway out, then gripped its horns and guided it safely to dry land. Amazing. Visitors watched in awe, capturing the moment on video. Go look for it. This isn't an isolated incident earlier in 2022. There was an isolated incident in 2022. Another elephant at the same zoo performed a similar rescue, prompting staff to call them lifeguards. Conservationists say this display showcases compassion and interspecies empathy, reminding humanity that kindness transcends boundaries. It's a powerful message. Real empathy can appear in unexpected forms, even in the wild. People, animals, efforts to make a difference in this world. Hopefully these stories inspired you or put a couple of smiles on your face. This episode was late because I had a health issue. Friday night had a somewhat emergency that was resolved, but I couldn't do the episode. So it's coming to you on a Sunday, and I do apologize. You're listening to A World Gone Mad. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. I'll be back again Monday, tomorrow, less than 24 hours, with another episode. Waiting to hear from you, everyone. And if I don't, then I'm sitting in a room talking to myself. Stay hopeful. There is